The wind, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth from the high crags, whistled softly through the colossal, time-worn sentinels known as the Whispering Peaks. Far below, nestled in a verdant basin carved by the snaking Silverstream River, lay the village of Silverstream Hollow, its chimneys puffing out cheerful plumes of smoke. It was here, amongst the lower, broken foothills where the peaks began their ascent, that Bartholomew had made his uneasy home. He was a giant, his clothes simple and practical, stitched together from large pieces of what looked like weathered animal hides and tough, woven grasses in muted, earthy colors. Despite his immense size, his face, framed by a tangle of hair the color of dried bracken, held a gentle, almost nervous quality. His hopeful eyes, the hue of a stormy sky just before it clears, scanned the distant, miniature-looking sprawl of the hollow. A deep longing, vast as the peaks themselves, ached within him. He'd observed the small folk of Silverstream Hollow for so long, seen their flickering hearthlights, heard the distant echoes of their laughter, their shared songs that drifted up on the evening breeze. Oh, how he wished to be a part of it. He'd even found a tiny, discarded woolen cap once, brightly colored. He'd held it carefully between two enormous fingers, a look of profound sadness crossing his features as he realized the impossibility of ever fitting into such a thing, a poignant symbol of the gulf between their world and his. With a sigh that rustled the leaves of the ancient, giant-sized firs that dotted his domain, Bartholomew renewed his efforts. He tried to tiptoe, a comical, yet earnest endeavor for one his size. Each step, however light he attempted to make it, sent subtle tremors through the ground, causing loose pebbles to skitter and small forest creatures to dart for cover. He winced, embarrassed by the commotion. Once, while trying to clear a space to sit more comfortably, his huge, weathered hand had accidentally nudged a small, empty handcart left by a woodcutter at the forest's edge. It had rolled a short way before tipping, spilling its few remaining twigs. Horror had flashed across Bartholomew's face. He'd then, with utmost care, righted it, painstakingly replacing each twig with a massive fingertip, his expression a mask of apology. Today, he was trying something new, something he'd seen the little people do when they wanted to be less conspicuous. He was trying to make himself smaller. He concentrated intensely, his brow furrowed in deep effort. He took visible, heaving breaths and physically hunched his enormous frame, straining to compress his bulk against the backdrop of moss-covered boulders in the cloud-draped sky. It was then he saw them, a few small human figures at the edge of the valley, looking like tiny carved dolls from his vantage point. They were pointing, their gestures sharp with alarm. One held a crudely painted sign on a piece of wood. Even from this distance, Bartholomew could make out the stark, unfriendly words, "Monster, be gone." A cold dread seeped into Bartholomew's heart, heavier than any mountain stone. He stayed hunched, trying to appear as unthreatening as possible, a statue of hopeful misery. But then, tiny projectiles, pebbles, really, began to arc through the air. They bounced harmlessly off his tough, hide-clad arm and leg. It wasn't the impact that stung, but the intent. Bartholomew flinched, not from pain, but from a deep, emotional shock. His hopeful expression began to crumble into visible sadness and confusion. He could see more distant figures now, their shouts too far to be understood, but their aggressive postures, unmistakable. Another, slightly larger stone, perhaps the size of a small apple to him, struck his shoulder, again causing no real harm but deepening the wound within. A single, enormous tear, like a captured drop of mountain rain, welled in Bartholomew's eye. It traced a slow, hot path down his weathered cheek. He looked towards Silverstream Hollow, its cozy lights just beginning to twinkle as dusk painted the sky in hues of bruised purple and soft orange. The familiar longing was there, sharp and painful. He let out a deep, resonant sigh, a sound like the wind gaining strength before a storm. But as the air left his great lungs, something shifted within him. It wasn't a sigh of resignation, but one that seemed to clear away the fog of his sorrow. He looked down at his massive hands, truly seeing them, not as clumsy obstacles to fitting in, but as instruments of incredible strength and capability. He flexed his fingers, feeling the power that lay dormant within them, power that could shift boulders the small folk couldn't budge, or clear paths through forests in mere hours. He slowly straightened from his defeated hunch, uncurling to his full, magnificent height. His gaze swept over the landscape. From up here, he could see the entire valley of Silverstream laid out like a child's playmat. He could see the snaking river, the patchwork of fields, the tiny village, and beyond it, ranges of hills and other valleys the small folk might never explore in a lifetime. His perspective wasn't just higher, it was vaster, more encompassing. a profound realization dawned. Why had he been trying to shrink himself, to contort his very being into a shape that wasn't his? These small people, with their small fears and small lives, could never be like him. It was true. But just as truly, he could never be, nor should he want to be, like them. His attempts had been a betrayal of his own unique nature. He watched as a group of deer, startled by something unseen by the villagers, began to stampede towards a section of poorly maintained fence bordering a villager's crop. From his vantage, he could see the inevitable damage. With a movement too swift and precise for his size to suggest, he reached out, plucked a fallen young tree from nearby, and with two effortless movements, laid it along the ground in the deer's path, diverting them gently towards the open woods. The villagers would never know. They would only see their fence intact, their crops safe. A small, genuine smile touched Bartholomew's lips. It wasn't the joyful smile of belonging he had once craved, but something deeper, more serene, the smile of self-acceptance. His differences didn't make him a monster. They made him Bartholomew. They made him capable of things beyond their wildest imaginings. If they feared him, it was born of their own limitations, not his. As late evening settled, cloaking the land in shadow, Bartholomew stood tall and calm upon the crest of his chosen foothill. The whispering peaks rose behind him like a crown, ancient and powerful, a reflection of his own spirit. The lights of Silverstream Hollow twinkled far below. He no longer looked at them with painful longing, but with a detached understanding, perhaps even a touch of quiet protectiveness. He was a guardian of these heights, a solitary power. His greatness wasn't in being liked or accepted by those so unlike him, but in being true to the magnificent scale of his own existence. And in that truth, he found a profound, unshakable peace, that he is a giant amongst average men.